to get to sit before some legends in Texas and on this really august day of launching the new facility. I'm lucky in that I get to office just a few blocks from here. It was my co-founder, Will Davis, who's in the back, who hails from Lubbock. And about 5 years ago, when we were classmates at, yeah, that's a gun, is a reference.
Guns up.
Shoot him, I'm still learning these things. He says, I've got this crazy idea, we should try to take over the Postal Service. And that was just crazy enough to be interesting to me. And then we had this challenge of my wife and I planned to move back to California. Will was dead set on moving to Texas. And it took a little convincing my wife, who's originally from Manhattan but has some Texas roots, to persuade her and the rest of our crew that we should come to Texas. And so that move was about 5 years ago, so we get to live in Austin and build companies here. And early on, we were building a business that was taking a direct offensive at the federal government, looking at the incompetence of the United States Postal Service and trying to build a great technology solution that helps American citizens have an alternative. It was Will's idea to actually put a come and take it flag up in our office, and it just felt amazingly Texan. But I have to say, as I've gotten to know more of Austin, I'm starting to appreciate the idea that it's a blueberry and the tomato soup. And, I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs who are in their 20s and 30s, men and women who've made millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars building their businesses in Texas, who have no idea what TPPF does. They have no idea what's happening in the state. For the most part, they vote straight party tickets for Democrats, and they just assume that the economic conditions that enable them to build their business are going to be things that continue to last. And this is a panel of three amazing men, and TPPF is an organization that understands that that's not something we should take for granted. So I am so excited that just a few blocks away from our headquarters, we get to have this space, and hopefully Brooke will have us back and we can convince more of these left-leaning tech entrepreneurs to come take some of these ideas seriously. Well, we're going to get started, just starting with Dr. Jim at the end of the line. We're going to take a few minutes. We'd love to just hear some of your story, particularly what got you interested early on in taking on sometimes these controversial positions of defending limited governments and free markets. Tell us a bit about that story.
Well, the first thing that happened to get me involved politically was, well, I guess the first thing was Ronald Reagan. I wrote him a small check. And other than that, I voted in presidential elections. That was about it. But we started a small company when I was running the 3 Baptist Hospital emergency rooms, and and I made every mistake you would expect a doctor to make, and we were near bankruptcy for about almost 9.5 years basically, and finally it began to turn around, and our sales were doubling every year. We finally had a product that people liked, and it wasn't too difficult for the nurses or the emergency room or the ICU crews, and so we were looking at going public, and our insurance, liability insurance company called us up and said they were going to cancel our insurance. And I said, well, we're going public here in 6 months and probably going to need to have liability insurance, so why are you canceling our insurance? We've never been sued. And they said, well, you're in the medical business. That's a high-risk business. And I said, well, yeah, but we've been in the medical business for 10 years. We've never been sued, so why are we being canceled? They said, well, we're just pulling out of Texas, and we're not doing anything in medical at all. And I just couldn't understand what was going on. Nobody would, just give me this straight scoop here. And so I was confused for about a year, and they did cancel us, and we finally got some other company, and then we had in 86 we had Black Friday or whatever it was, and market crashed, and we couldn't go public anyway. And I'm still confused about it. I didn't know why our insurance got canceled. Then I went to a fundraiser for Tom Phillips when he was first running for the Supreme Court, and they had his Justice for Sale in Texas tape playing, a 60 Minutes tape. And I sat there and watched that, and I said, now I understand. Nothing, I'd asked lawyers, I'd asked everybody, nobody gave me the deal, a small handful of trial lawyers owned the Supreme Court. So I just, I decided right then and there I was going to get involved. I was just offended that, you know, people would do that and could do that in a state as great as Texas. So I got involved with all kinds of Supreme Court races, and before long we had changed out that entire court. And then I really became passionate about school choice, and you know, fought that fight for about 20 years and lost. You know, basically the education bureaucracy has about 800,000 employees in Texas. They're way bigger than I was, so they, you know, when they flex their muscles, every legislator kind of got a little weak in the knees, it seemed like back then. So hopefully this year we've got a great chance to pass something to allow kids that are trapped in failing and unsafe schools to go to a school that they want to go to and that they think is best for them.
But so some people encounter a problem with their business and they decide to read a book or, you know, write a letter. What caused you to just be so zealous and so commit so much time and resources to these causes? Just to the causes. You weren't merely trying to say, I need to fix this problem for my business. You were devoting your life in many ways to these ideas. Tell us more about that.
Well, you know, at that time, part of it was we did in 1988, we went public, and well, there's so many amazing business stories, but in 86, I think there's a lot of people here will remember this. In 1986, the long-term capital gains was going away, and so everybody was trying to sell their business, and that was a problem because, you know, our business was doing great, but everybody else was trying to recapitalize or sell their business or somehow take that long-term capital gain while it was still there before it went away. So we tried to find a buyer, couldn't find anybody willing to pay anywhere near what we thought it was worth. So we went to Merrill Lynch and borrowed $50 million and just offered everybody who had been in the company, who had stock in the company, to buy back their shares. And when we first started in 1976, the minimum investment to buy stock was $20,000. So we left it at like $1 a share, and we left it at that price for the next 9 years because we weren't doing very good. And then finally it started to take off, and so we bought back people's shares. That people that had invested $20,000 got $1 million for their stock. So needless to say, it was fully signed up for and as it turned out, the IRS rules were that I was the only one that couldn't sell their stock because I was the majority shareholder. So all of a sudden, our parking lot has all these new pickup trucks in it, and I'm still riding my old Suburban. I was a little bit perturbed about that, but then the business kept doing great, and 2 years later we went public, and I owned like 98% of the stock, and that was really good. So we went public, and so all this to say, I was financially in really good shape at that point, and so, you know, I was very passionate about school choice and about tort reform. And, you know, thankfully, I don't know if Dick Weekly's here, I saw him earlier, but man, Dick Weekly took over tort reform and never looked back, and did a phenomenal job. And we're still struggling with school choice. I mean, it's the right thing for the kids. 2 entire generations have gone through K through 12 while we've been trying to do it, and the schools today are as bad or worse as they were 26 years ago. So that's the #1 thing we've got to fix in Texas.
Thank you. Well, Red, tell us a little bit about your journey.